Namaskar and welcome to this edition of National Perspective. Today we are going to discuss a very sensitive issue of Manipur violence. As the entire nation is shocked with regard to the viral video of two women being paraded without clothes by unknown armed miscreants. Already the case is being registered. Prime Minister has called it almost like a nation is being ashamed by this act. Chief Minister of Manipur, N. Biren Singh, has called it a crime against humanity. Chief Justice of India has taken a suo motu cognizance of the incident and said if government cannot act, the courts will have to act. Undoubtedly, this is a very serious issue and we should address it immediately and sensitively. As of now, when on 10th of July, Government of Manipur filed a report in Supreme Court, there are as many as 5,000 cases registered about various incidents of arson in the state of Manipur, especially in Imphal East and Imphal West districts. Here, the cases of deaths, 152. There are videos that are now circulated where the security forces are being blocked by women activists in Manipur. So there are videos, counter videos, there are confusions. Now we need to understand this entire issue in the context. What is at the root of it? Why it is being spreading like a spiral fire, and how to address it. As the Supreme Court filed report says, 6,745 people are taken into custody, more than 5,900 cases have been filed. Some of them are even transferred to the CBI. But the crux of the matter is one decision to include Meitei community of Manipur in the scheduled tribe category, which has resulted into this violence, destruction of property, displacement of people and killings. The decision of such inclusion was by the Guwahati High Court after hearing a civil writ petition filed by several members of Meitei Tribe Union. The demand is not new. They had this kind of status before independence. And therefore, the bench comprising M.V. Muralidharan, who was acting Chief Justice then, allowed the petition and directed the state to consider this request. Now, the time was given was 4 weeks. This was in the month of May, last week of May. Now, what is the background of this entire demand? Meitei community had their tribal status before 21st September 1949, before signing the merger agreement of Manipur with the Union of India. While merging, the Meitei community had lost that status and identity of being tribal because they were worshippers of Krishna, following the Vaishnavite tradition. The petitioner's plea was that their tribal status should be restored, and as per the Constitution of India, because they are also residents of Northeast, they should get this special provision so that educational opportunities and employment opportunities could be availed. Court obviously taken the note of it, and since 2022 April, this entire case has been on the fast track. Now, this one simple decision by Manipur Imphal bench of the Guwahati High Court rattled many. Why? Because there has been, besides this merger thing, historically, the British had created another divide. The divide was on hills and plains line. This division was in a way artificial because all these communities residing in the northeast were dependent on the forest. They had their traditional life very close to the nature. Some of them were traditional nature worshippers. Some of them were worshipping various gods. But over the period of time, due to the British policies and some of the miscalculations in the post-independent period, especially by the Nehru government, it is the missionaries who got a foothold in this region, especially the hill areas. And in this hill area, where primarily the Kukis and the Nagas, the broad categories of many tribes together, they got together having linkages in the northwestern region, that is present day Myanmar, and therefore these were the communities who got the tribal status. They occupied the entire land in the hill areas, and obviously these communities now opposing any kind of change in the tribal status for Meiteis. Is the violence just to do with the scheduled tribe status to Meiteis? If this is so, then why earlier temples were attacked, in retaliation certain churches were attacked? We need to answer these questions with not just the historical but even the socio-economic dimensions of various communities in Manipur. As I said, the present day Manipur was among few areas that the British could not annex completely. Thanks to the valor and conviction of the patriots like Bir Tikendrajit Singh, who ruled Manipur kingdom, nurtured the Bhakti movement popularized by Rajashri Bhagyachandra, and remained a kingdom with a distinct religious cultural identity despite the indirect control of the British. The Vaishnavite tradition remained at the heart of Manipur, and Meiteis became virtually the torchbearers of that tradition. But in the surrounding areas and the communities, British systematically created divisions. The first layer of division today apparently look religious, but originally it was on geographical lines, as they did in other parts of Northeast, the hills and the plains. Here they introduced the inner line permit concept. A person from the plain entering into hill areas would have to take the permit. The so-called mainland, the remaining parts of India, again you need a permit. So in the name of protecting tribal, who fought tooth and nail against the missionaries and the British rule, various acts were introduced to isolate them. Since Government of India Act 1935, some areas were declared as excluded, some were declared as partially excluded, and these areas over the period of time became a majority of tribal population with distinct cultural traditions, but most of them who were nature worshippers over the period of time came under the influence of foreign missionaries. They were given the free hand to destroy the local cultures and traditions, and subsequent conversion happened in this area. As we know, in 1940s, there was this idea of crown colony here, carving out a separate Christian state in Asia, which was the ultimate plan of British. Fortunately, it didn't come through. But even in the post-independent period, the plan remained intact. The same policies unfortunately continued. Not just in Manipur, but entire Northeast is facing most of the problems because of that. The result was the communities like Nagas and the Kukis, having linkages in the northwestern province of present-day Myanmar, and now residing mainly in Manipur hill areas, got the scheduled tribe status, while the original inhabitants of Manipur were excluded from the same. The Land Reforms Act of Manipur in 1960s was a step forward in perpetuating this discrimination against Meiteis. Because now Manipur got divided not just on community lines, tribal and non-tribal, but hill and plains, where Meiteis who are mainly living in plains could not purchase any land in the hills, while hill people can come down in the plains. The result is 90% Meitei community is restricted to 10% of the land, while originally 10% Nagas and Kukis, who have increased considerably now in percentage, are actually occupying 90% of the hill areas. After 75 years of independence, when Meitei is finally getting their due rights, there are certain groups, vested interest, who are instigating this violence. So, this is just Meiteis getting tribal status and Meiteis getting land rights. These are two fundamental issues. Now, from 1970s, there is another dimension added to this game: poppy fields and drug trafficking. In the hill areas, illegal migration from Chin Kukis who crossed over from Myanmar after liberation of Bangladesh. Their infiltration further created pressure on the Imphal Valley. The recent decisions to end the poppy culture and identification of government land even in the forest areas through the revenue department are another important reasons behind this violence. The NBRN Singh government in Manipur, with the support from the Union Home Ministry, started a strict action against the drug peddlers. Thousands of tons of drugs is being either burnt or confiscated. Illegal encroachers on the land or who are getting into this drug trafficking, they are identified. The perception about entire Northeast is changing in the last few years. The infrastructure, cultural and emotional connect with the rest of the Bharat has increased significantly. The fruits of peace and development are also can be realized by all sections of society. Traditionally, there have been forces who run the parallel governments and insurgency-based industry. But many individuals and groups have signed peace agreements with the union government now. State governments of the region are trying their best to resolve the boundary disputes either within the states or among the states. Even inter-community relationship has improved over the last few years. Naturally, subversive forces whose shops are getting closed due to these developments are not happy. Manipur violence is a message that we will not allow peace to settle down in the Northeast. The issues of Northeast are historical. Freedom fighters like Bir Tikendrajit Singh or Ranima Gandilyu or many others did not fight or sacrifice their lives to fight among ourselves, but to save the land, culture, people and nation from the colonial exploitation and aggression. Getting rid of this colonial legacy, both in legal and intellectual terms, is the first step for realizing the objectives set by the freedom fighters. While retaining our unique traditions, when we would learn to accommodate each other's concerns, claims and aspirations, our national selfhood would be realized. This is, of course, easier said than done. It is uphill task because the legacy is of more than 100 years. The resurfacing of artificial divisions in Manipur has reminded us of this unfinished task. And therefore, what court has said while talking about this particular case regarding the Meitei reservation, court finds some force in the submission made by the learned counsel for the petitioners, as the petitioners and other unions are fighting long years for inclusion of Meitei community in the tribe list of Manipur. This was the verbatim of Guwahati High Court. We need to look at it sensitively in the historical context. But more important than that, we need to understand that the entire crisis, including the present incident, the inhuman incident. There are killings from both the sides, women are being attacked. Now, fortunately, there is a 3-member team appointed by the center to probe this violence. This commission is led by Chief Justice of Guwahati High Court, Ajay Lamba, former IPS officer Prabhakar Aloka, and retired IAS officer Himanshu Shekhar Das. This is a 3-member committee. Center, I think, should request them to file their report as early as possible. Simultaneously, we need to understand there has been misinformation campaign in the Northeast and lack of information in the rest of Bharat. In the rest of Bharat, we should show greater sensitivity towards the issues related to Northeast. We should avoid any kind of misinformation campaign. And to stop that, we should have greater restrictions on the sharing of anonymous videos, messages, because it would only give weapons in the hands of miscreants. We also need to ask a question. For the last few years, if peace and development in the entire Northeast has been the accepted fact and connectivity, culture, emotional bonds improved, who are the people who would like to damage this changing situation? Why does certain group taking special interest and investing in getting global attention to the Manipur crisis? Is it to do with the Myanmar or Chinese angle to the crisis? Whatever may be the case, until we are addressing Manipur violence as the state problem or just inter-community problem, either between Meiteis or Kukis or Hindus and Christians, it would give only piecemeal solution. It is a national problem and it should be treated like one. As we, over the period of time, change our understanding about the crisis in Jammu Kashmir, we should have similar kind of approach towards Northeast, where we should decolonize entire discourse on Northeast, look at the Northeast from national perspective. Each community, their traditions, their cultures should be respected. While doing that, any challenge to India's unity and integrity, any crime against humanity should not be spared. With this perspective, if we are ready to take up this long-term battle to resolve not just the Manipur, but entire, issues related to Northeast, then we would be really seeing this crisis in a national perspective. Thank you for watching this edition of National Perspective. I request you to subscribe to Organiser channel, share this video with your friends, family members, and ask them to join this movement for national news beyond